Emperor Buretsu. If you want to find the single most monstrous name in the entire history of Japanese imperial records, most historians will point you straight to Emperor Buretsu, who reigned from 498 to 506 CE. The Nihon Shoki, Japan's second oldest chronicle compiled in 720 CE, describes a ruler who committed atrocities not for political gain, not to consolidate power, but purely for amusement. He reportedly disemboweled pregnant women to observe the fetuses, tore fingernails from subjects and forced them to dig yams with their ruined hands, and ordered executions the way a bored child pulls wings off insects. Here's where it gets complicated, though. Buretsu died leaving no heir, which conveniently allowed the Keitai line to step in and take the throne. Most modern historians now suspect that his monstrous reputation was constructed or heavily exaggerated after the fact by Keitai's court scribes who needed a villain to justify their own claim to power. Whether Buretsu was truly a sadist or simply a dynastic scapegoat, he remains the name ancient Japan chose to attach to pure evil. Emperor Keidai. The man who benefited most from Buretsu's blackened reputation was Keitai himself, who took the throne in 507 CE after being pulled from the provinces as a distant imperial relative. His reign was marked less by personal cruelty and more by the organized, systematic kind, which history tends to find easier to forgive. When the powerful regional lord Iwai, based in northern Kyushu, allied with the Korean kingdom of Silla against the Yamato court, Keitai responded with overwhelming military force. The suppression of the Iwai rebellion between 527 and 528 CE was not a battle so much as an annihilation. Iwai was killed, his forces destroyed, and his family eliminated. At roughly the same time, Japan's territorial foothold on the Korean peninsula, the Mimana region, was lost under disputed circumstances that scholars still argue over today. Keitai's evil is administrative and cold, rather than theatrical. He inherited a throne built on another man's manufactured infamy, and held it through the simple method of crushing anyone who pushed back. Emperor Tenmu. Tenmu did not wait for someone to die and leave him a throne. In 672 CE, he simply took one, fighting and winning Japan's earliest documented civil war, the Jinshin War, against his own nephew, the reigning emperor Kobun. Kobun's reign had lasted roughly 8 months. After Tenmu's forces won, Kobun was dead, and the losing faction's aristocrats faced mass executions and purges as Tenmu systematically dismantled the hereditary power of every noble family that had opposed him. What makes Tenmu a genuinely fascinating kind of dangerous is what he did next. He commissioned the Kojiki, Japan's founding national myth, partly to legitimize the very violent seizure of power that got him there in the first place. He didn't just rewrite history with a sword, he then hired scholars to rewrite it with ink. His reign from 673 to 686 CE transformed the imperial institution into an autocracy, and the cultural legacy he manufactured is still read today. Empress Koken and Shotoku. The same woman ruled Japan twice under 2 different names. First as Empress Koken from 749 to 758 CE, then as Empress Shotoku from 764 to 770 CE. And the second reign was where things turned dark, when former ally Fujiwara no Nakamaro, also known as Emi no Oshikatsu, raised a rebellion against her in 764 CE. She had him hunted down and executed with his entire family massacred alongside him. That was, by the brutal standards of the era, arguably justifiable. What was harder to justify was her elevation of the Buddhist monk, Dokyo, to quasi-imperial status, granting him political influence that approached the throne itself. The instability this caused rippled forward for generations. After her death in 770 CE, Japan's court effectively decided that women could not be trusted with the throne, and no empress regnant would rule again for over a millennium. Much of the historical record damning her was written by the Fujiwara clan, who had excellent reasons to make her look incompetent, worth keeping in mind. Emperor Kanmu. Kanmu founded Heian-kyo, modern Kyoto, in 794 CE and is generally remembered as one of Japan's great builder emperors. He was also a man who had his own brother killed. Imperial Prince Sawara was accused of involvement in the assassination of a political rival and condemned to exile, where he died in 785 CE, reportedly from a hunger strike. The guilt apparently followed Kanmu. Court diviners blamed a string of subsequent disasters, including epidemics and floods, on Sawara's vengeful spirit, and Kanmu moved the capital in part part to escape the curse. Meanwhile, his military campaigns against the Emishi people of northern Honshu ran for over 2 decades, systematically displacing and killing tens of thousands. The general Sakanue no Tamuramaro was celebrated in court poetry for these campaigns. The Emishi were not writing the poetry. Kanmu reigned from 781 to 806 CE and built one of history's most beautiful cities, partly on a foundation of his brother's bones. Emperor Go-Toba. Go-Toba was emperor from 1183 CE, but held his real power after abdicating, operating through the Insei system by which retired emperors continued to govern from behind the curtain. In 1221 CE, he made the single worst strategic decision in Imperial Japanese history, launching the Jokyu War against the Kamakura shogunate. The shogunate crushed him in weeks. Go-Toba became the first emperor in Japanese history to be exiled by a warrior government, shipped to the remote Oki Islands, where he would remain until his death in 1239 CE. The consequences extended far beyond him personally. The shogunate executed sons of 3 former emperors and exiled multiple members of the imperial family. His reckless gamble, built on political maneuvering and the assassination of shogunate-aligned officials, cost his relatives their lives and the imperial institution decades of credibility. Go-Toba was also a celebrated poet who helped compile the Shinkokinshu anthology. History contains multitudes. Emperor Go-Daigo. Go-Daigo actually succeeded where Go-Toba failed. He overthrew the Kamakura shogunate in the Kenmu Restoration of 1333 CE and briefly restored direct imperial rule for the first time in over a century. Then he proceeded to light Japan on fire for 60 years. When Nida Yoshisada's forces sacked Kamakura in 1333, the destruction was catastrophic, with thousands of Hojo clan members killed or driven to mass suicide. Go-Daigo's attempts to restore court-centered governance alienated the very samurai generals who had fought for him, driving Ashikaga Takauji into open rebellion and ultimately producing a rival emperor backed by the shogunate. The resulting Nanboku Cho period, the era of the northern and southern courts, lasted from 1336 to 1392 CE and filled those 56 years with near constant warfare. Go-Daigo died in exile in Yoshino in 1339 CE, still refusing to surrender. His ambition was real, his cause was arguably legitimate, and the human cost was staggering. Emperor Go-Yozei. The Momoyama period produced some of Japan's most spectacular art, and Emperor Go-Yozei, who reigned from 1586 to 1611 CE, presided over it from a throne that meant almost nothing politically. Real power belonged to Toyotomi Hideyoshi and then Tokugawa Ieyasu, and Go-Yozei's role was essentially ceremonial. This apparently did not improve his temperament. Court records describe a ruler prone to sudden violent rages against courtiers, and he reportedly moved to have his own younger brother, Imperial Prince Hachijo-no-miya Toshihito, executed on charges that historians have struggled to fully reconstruct, with Hideyoshi reportedly intervening to save the prince's life. Go-Yozei also formally legitimized the invasions of Korea in 1592 and 1597, known as the Imjin War, conflicts that killed hundreds of thousands, while exercising zero actual control over them. His abdication came under pressure, the exact circumstances of which remain debated. He is a study in how a man can cause tremendous damage from a position of almost total powerlessness. Emperor Komei. Komei reigned from 1846 to 1867 CE and died just months before the Meiji Restoration that would have handed his successors genuine power, which, given his politics, may have been catastrophic. He was the most politically active emperor in centuries and used that activity primarily to promote violent xenophobia. His issuance of the Joy Edict in 1863, ordering the expulsion of foreigners, gave direct imperial sanction to samurai factions already attacking Western diplomats and ships. The fallout included the Namamugi Incident of 1862 and the subsequent Anglo-Satsuma War of 1863, in which British warships bombarded Kagoshima. His opposition to westernization was so total that he paradoxically worked against the imperial restoration movement when it seemed likely to open Japan to foreign influence. He died on January 30th, 1867, and some historians have raised the possibility of arsenic poisoning, though this remains genuinely disputed and should not be treated as established fact. Emperor Meiji. Meiji is on every list of Japan's great emperors, and the Meiji period from 1868 to 1912 CE genuinely transformed a feudal state into an industrial power in under 50 years. It also began with the Boshin War of 1868 to 1869, in which former Tokugawa loyalists were killed in significant numbers at Ueno and at the Siege of Aizu, where the defeated were reportedly denied burial for weeks in deliberate humiliation. The Satsuma Rebellion of 1877 ended samurai culture, not through negotiation but through modern artillery and mass executions. The Ryukyu Kingdom was absorbed in 1879 CE, erasing a sovereign state. The First Sino-Japanese War ended in 1895 with the annexation of Taiwan and included the Port Arthur Massacre, in which Japanese forces killed thousands of Chinese civilians, though debate continues about the degree of Meiji's personal direction versus military command independence. The trains ran on time. The cost was substantial. Emperor Hirohito. Hirohito reigned from 1926 to 1989 CE and is the most contested figure in this entire list. The Second Sino-Japanese War, which began in 1937 under his reign, included the Nanjing Massacre of December 1937 to January 1938, in which Chinese civilians were killed in numbers that historians estimate between 100,000 and 300,000, a range that reflects genuine scholarly dispute rather than evasion. Unit 731, the Imperial Japanese Army's biological warfare unit, conducted lethal human experiments on prisoners throughout the war. The extent of Hirohito's personal knowledge and authorization of these operations remains academically disputed, with some documented evidence suggesting awareness and other historians arguing for deliberate compartmentalization. Hiroshima was bombed on August 6, 1945, killing approximately 140,000 people, and Nagasaki on August 9th, killing approximately 70,000 more, in large part because the war Hirohito had the authority to end continued. The American occupation chose not to prosecute him. He died on January 7, 1989, having never issued a formal personal acknowledgement of responsibility. He remains, depending entirely on your sources, either a powerless figurehead or the man at the center of it all. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.